Okay, and give everyone a minute to log in here. Okay. Excellent. So I see that we have some participants joining us today. Thank you so much for joining the session. And I'm going to give it another minute or two just for everyone to be able to get in and logged in and all set up with their sound and everything. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. Let's see here. All right, so it looks like we have a bunch of attendees in our room now. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. My name is Elise Todderud, and I'm an admission counselor at University of the Sciences. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening for the session regarding the direct entry programs at USciences and the benefits of joining our direct entry programs. And I have two wonderful students here with me today who are actually going to talk about their experiences. We have two different students here who are talking a little bit about their experiences coming into the program in different ways. So they'll be able to talk to you a little bit about their experiences at the end, and you can ask your questions of them as well. If you have questions throughout the presentation, you can type them into the Q&A feature, and I'm going to keep an eye on that as we're going through the slides. So again, welcome to the session, and let's get started. Okay, so during this presentation, I'm going to just show a couple of slides before we open it up to questions. First, I'm going to talk about the direct entry programs at USciences. I'll talk a little bit about the requirements for the programs, as well as different kinds of opportunities that you have available to you as a direct entry student. We're going to talk about the fixed tuition fee schedule for direct entry students at USciences. We'll talk about the admission process. I know some of you are accepted, some of you are still in the application process, and some of you may actually be prospective students. So we'll talk about your application process no matter what stage you are. And we're also going to talk about some student outcomes as well for the direct entry programs. And then, like I said before, I'm going to open it up to our current students who are really the star of the show here, and they're going to talk about their experiences, and then we'll talk about your questions as well. Okay, so those of you who are joining our session today, you are probably considering one of the three programs that you see on the screen. University of the Sciences offers 3 direct entry professional programs. These would include the pharmacy program, the PharmD, the occupational therapy program, the DROT, and the physical therapy program, the DPT. Now, each of these is a direct entry doctoral program, meaning that you would earn your clinical doctorate during the 6 years of study on campus. You complete all of your coursework at USciences. For the pharmacy program, this program is a little bit different than the PT and OT programs. This program has a 2-year pre-professional phase and a 4-year professional phase. The physical therapy and occupational therapy programs both have a 3-year pre-professional phase and a 3-year professional phase. But the important thing to keep in mind is that each of these programs is a 0 to 6 program. So I'm going to talk about direct entry benefits in just a moment here. Okay, and like I said before, I'm going to keep an eye on the chat and the Q&A. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them into either of those options. Okay, so you may be considering pursuing one of these programs at USciences or maybe at another institution. And you might be thinking, should I pursue direct entry or should I pursue a bachelor's degree and then reapply to graduate school? So hands down, I always recommend to students that if you are considering one of those professions, whether it's pharmacy, physical therapy, or occupational therapy, direct entry is definitely the way to go. And there are a lot of different reasons for that. One of the main reasons is that you know you have your spot saved for you for the entire length of your program. So you don't have to worry about a lot of the things that students have to worry about who are applying to external institutions. It's really great peace of mind knowing that you already have your spot saved for you for all those 6 years. One of the great things about our direct entry programs as well is that you do not have to take any type of graduate examination to progress into the professional phase. So some of you, maybe not all of you, but some of you may have taken or are planning to take an SAT or ACT for getting into your undergraduate portion. The GRE, the PCAT, those types of examinations are kind of the equivalent for getting into graduate or professional schooling. But with our programs, you don't have to take any of those tests. One of the great things about our direct entry programs as well is that your curriculum, your pre-professional curriculum plan is going to fulfill all the requirements to get into the professional phase. So you don't have to worry about picking the right classes to actually fulfill your undergraduate degree requirements. Those are already going to be set out for you. And one of the best things, in my opinion, really, and this kind of goes hand in hand with the peace of mind thing, is that you have no added stress of applying to other external institutions. So while you're pursuing your education at USciences, you are only pursuing your education at USciences. You don't have to worry about applying to other schools and getting your applications in and all that stuff. You already have your spot saved for you. So you don't have any of those added pressures and stresses. One of the best things too, in my opinion, is that students who are pursuing direct entry programs traditionally will save time and money. And we'll talk a little bit about the tuition fee schedule in just a moment here for direct entry students. But the biggest thing here is that you're probably going to save a lot of time as you're going through your program. All of our programs, like I mentioned before, are 6-year programs, which means that you complete your entire degree in 6 years and you're done. In most cases, students who are pursuing a bachelor's degree, let's say you're maybe going into a physical therapy program and you pursue a bachelor's degree in either health sciences or biology, students would probably do that in 4 years and then pursue a PT program in either 3 or 4 years. So that could be a 7 or 8 year degree. And you're doing that in 6 years at USciences. Same goes with the pharmacy and occupational therapy programs as well. So that's a lot of benefits there. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about some academic and experiential opportunities for our professional students. As a professional student, not only are you working toward your degree requirements, you also have the option to pursue minors and certificates. So even though you're already in an accelerated 6-year program, you can still pursue a minor or a certificate. For example, one of the newer certificates that we offer is our Spanish for healthcare professionals. So this is great for students who want to go into a healthcare setting where maybe you're working with a Spanish speaking population. That's a wonderful certificate to be able to pursue. And like I said, you can do that right alongside your professional degree and obtain both of those by the time you graduate in 6 years. One of the other things that we encourage students to get involved with as a professional student is undergraduate research. So this is something that you can actually start doing as early as your first year, second semester. And research is available within any discipline. So even if you're in, let's say, the pharmacy program, you can do research in physics or psychology or neuroscience, whatever you're interested in. So lots of opportunities for research. And that's really something great to get involved with, especially if you are considering going into an additional degree program after your professional degree. Or to also boost your resume once you actually go to get your first job. And then finally, one of the great things about being a professional student at USciences, and maybe our students can talk a little bit more about this as well, is getting involved with career-specific associations. So with our 3 professional programs, pharmacy, OT, and PT, we have many different career and program-related associations that you can get involved with. So lots to do that's related to your major and that can help you with professional development and also making connections as you go through your program. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how we invest in your education, and we'll talk specifically about what that looks like for our direct entry students. So those of you who are considering USciences, maybe you've already applied or you've been accepted, you've probably heard of the fixed tuition fee pricing. So this is another benefit that I mentioned. Students who are pursuing a direct entry program traditionally save a lot of money when they pursue the direct entry program versus doing a bachelor's degree and then reapplying for graduate school because you're doing your degree in 6 years. So for those of you considering the professional programs, you're going to be looking at the bottom of our chart here for physical therapy, pharmacy, and occupational therapy. So those of you starting in fall 2021, your undergraduate pre-professional years will be $27,500 for your tuition fee. This is a fixed tuition fee pricing schedule. So what that means is that you are going to know exactly what you're paying for your entire cost of your degree from day one. And that's true for your whole 6 years through the entire pre-professional and professional phases in your program. And on the next slide, I'll show the professional costs as well. So the professional program costs are on the screen as well for each of those 3 programs. And again, the great thing to keep in mind is that this is a fixed tuition fee pricing schedule. So what that means for you is a couple different things here. We're offering a transparent pricing schedule so you know exactly the cost of your degree from day one. There are not many schools out there, very few schools out there, in fact, that can commit to knowing, to telling you exactly what you're going to be responsible for in terms of tuition fee for the entire length of your degree, especially if you're not in a direct entry program. So at USciences, no additional tuition fee increases every year. Most schools increase their costs anywhere from 3 to 7% per year. So at USciences, you will not have any of those tuition and fee increases. In fact, if you're starting in fall 2021, you can literally print out that tuition fee schedule that I just showed on the slides. You can post it on your refrigerator, and you can bank on knowing that that's exactly what you're going to be responsible for those 6 years. One of the great things about our tuition fee schedule for our direct entry students is that you really save up to thousands and thousands of, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars in tuition fee savings over the course of your 6-year degree because there are no annual tuition fee increases. So this is really something that, especially for direct entry students, having those, knowing exactly what you're going to be responsible for, having that fixed tuition fee is key. If you're in a 6-year program or a 7 or 8-year program in another school that's increasing their costs every year, that's thousands of dollars. And again, like I said, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars that you didn't initially plan for. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the admission process. I know that when some of you registered, some of you are already accepted, some of you are also prospective students. So let's just cover everyone and talk about the admission process and what that looks like. So if you are applying to USciences as a direct entry student, one of the benefits of that is that you apply directly to your program. You do not need to reapply for an undeclared program or a pre-professional program. You're applying directly to your major of interest on the common application. So you're going to apply for pharmacy, you're going to apply for physical therapy or occupational therapy. You're going to apply for that directly on the common application. We operate on a rolling admission policy. So what that means is that as soon as you submit all of your application materials, we'll provide an admission decision as soon as we make that. Typically, that's within a couple of weeks of receiving a completed application. And finally, you can apply at commonapp.org. If you haven't already done so, that is open for seniors. For juniors and sophomores, that will be open August 1st prior to your senior year. Okay, and what we're going to be looking at on your application is for students in all of our programs, we're looking at your transcript, which has your GPA, as well as the coursework and rigor of the classes that you've taken. We'll look for at least one letter of recommendation. A lot of students who are pursuing our direct entry programs will pursue letters of recommendation from maybe someone that you shadowed or someone that you were able to do volunteering hours with, specifically related to your major of interest. So that's great if you have that. We also look for your common application essay. So we're going to look for your essay prompt. Any prompt is fine for our purposes. We're also going to look at your activities list and any honors that you were awarded as well. So make sure you brag about yourself on your application. And students always ask me if they're pursuing direct entry and they've done, let's say, shadowing or those kinds of opportunities with maybe a physical therapy practice, or you've shadowed in a pharmacy. That's great. You should definitely include that on your application. We love to see that. And then I always like to mention for students starting in fall 2021, we are test optional. So if you've already applied, you may already know that, but if you didn't know that, now you know. So test optional for 2021. We're not sure if we'll continue for 2022 and beyond, but we'll definitely update our website as soon as we make that decision. Okay, and a little bit more information about what we're looking for on your transcript. When we're looking at your classes, we're going to look for Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry. We do like to see higher level math classes like Trig, Pre-Calc, or Calculus. For direct entry students, we're looking for at least 3 science classes with labs. So that could be biology, chemistry, physics, anatomy and physiology, or some combination of those classes. And students sometimes ask, hey, I took biology freshman year and I took AP Bio senior year. That can count as 2 different classes. Okay, so in terms of the admission timeline, I mentioned August 1st is when the common application opens. We do rolling admissions starting in April, or starting in usually late October through April. And basically what that means, the rolling admissions means that as soon as you submit your application and materials, we'll begin to review that application and give you a decision, usually within a couple of weeks. May 1 is our priority decision deadline. So that is the point when you would need to have your decision made about where you'll be attending. You can certainly let us know beforehand. And what I always like to tell students is that if you are accepted to a direct entry program, there is a cap on the number of students that we're able to admit into those programs. So if you know that you want to pursue the direct entry program at USciences, I encourage you to reserve your spot before May 1st so you can make sure that you reserve your spot in the direct entry program. And then finally, in June or July, you will want to submit your final high school transcript to the admission office. Okay, and then for those of you who are accepted, yay, great job, congratulations, woo. Make sure that you are following the next steps on the screen here. I had mentioned before regarding the May 1 deposit deadline, so just keep that in mind. The direct entry programs, tend to be some of the more popular programs on campus, so that is something that you would definitely want to make sure that you are reserving your spot for sooner than later if you know that you want to attend USciences. But a couple things to keep in mind, make sure you reach out to your admission counselor with questions, and I'm going to have all the admission counselors on the screen so that you can check out who your counselor is. You can join the accepted student Facebook group, and we have the link on the screen here as well. So if you're accepted, you can go ahead and start joining that group. Some other things to think about is that while we do have the benefits of the fixed tuition, we also encourage you to submit your FAFSA as well. So that is currently open, and we start to send financial aid packages usually starting in January. And then we also encourage you to keep in mind those accepted student day dates as well. We'll send you a lot of information about those over the next couple months in your email and also in your mailbox. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of wrap up my presentation here with a couple of our selling points. And one of the great things is that many of our graduates are professional degree graduates. So they've obtained the DPT, the GROT, or the PharmD. So many of our outcomes specifically speak to our direct entry graduates. So I'm just going to kind of wrap up the presentation here. So first and foremost, one of the great things about being where we're located is that we are in an excellent place for healthcare and internships, research, field experiences, volunteering, shadowing, all those things that you would need to actually go on to get your first job, but also to get experiential learning opportunities while you're in school. You can actually walk to 3 hospitals from our campus. So Philly is a great place to be going into one of those direct entry programs like pharmacy, physical therapy, and occupational therapy. So we're preparing students for some of the best healthcare positions in the US. And on the list here includes occupational therapists, pharmacists, and physical therapists. So, you're going to be in high demand when you actually go to graduate. And this is according to US News and World Report in 2020. And then finally, our students are ranked #1 in PA and also #2 out of nearly 600 selected private institutions for upward economic mobility. And basically what that means is that in general, our students are more successful financially than the generations before them. And then to wrap things up, last thing I'll say here is that our students are ranked #1 in PA, New Jersey, and Delaware, and top 10 in the nation for return on investment. And that's 40 years after enrollment. And basically what that means is that our students, the investment that you're making in your education at USciences truly pays off over the course of your career. So we're extremely proud of our students, and we hope that you consider applying to USciences and one of our direct entry programs as well. And yeah, so right now I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Keisha and Casey. And I would love for them to talk a little bit about their experiences. They're coming at the application process from a little bit of a different perspective. So I would love for you both to talk about your experiences and also any recommendations that you have regarding the programs that you are enrolled at USciences in terms of the admission process.
So hi, my name is Keisha. I'm in the Accelerated DROT program, and I am currently a P3 OT student. So that means it is my 5th year here at USciences. I came in as an undergrad my first year, and I honestly loved it. I feel like the application process was super easy because it was also Common App when I was applying. And the time that I was applying, USciences was one of the only universities that offer OT in a direct entry program. So I definitely jumped on that train. And what I liked about here too is that a lot of my friends, maybe they start off in a different program, but they can also immediately switch to different programs. So if you aren't sure about, you don't know if you want to do OT or PT or pharmacy, but you got into one of those programs, you can easily switch within those programs, but you have to do it within 1 year, because a lot of my friends did that as well. But I guess my favorite part about it is that I didn't have to go through, like we were, Elise was saying before, I didn't have to go through the process of reapplying, because I know when I was in high school, that was a very time consuming, and also it was a lot of money to apply, because especially for professional years, not a lot of schools waive those fees. So it was nice that I didn't have to take another GRE or any type of exams to get into my program. And the only requirements really is to make sure that you are within the GPA range of your program. So as long as you're making good grades, your seat is guaranteed. And yeah, since I was here for 5 years, I've actually done a lot within the community itself. I was an RA for 4 years. I volunteered at shop at the OT department there because it was such a short walk for a year and a half, but COVID kind of stopped that short, which kind of bummed me out, but it was still a great experience. And it's just nice to know basically that because I'm already in a 6-year program, I didn't have to worry about other external factors that come with it. Within my 5 years here, I was also part of the fixed tuition. So we were definitely calculating that, making sure that it is worth our money. But if you guys have any questions about that part, like the accelerated program or anything like that, let me know, put it in the Q&A and I'll answer them.
Thanks, Keisha.
All right, hi everyone, I'm Casey McCarthy. I am a P3 in the DPT program, so I am in my last year of the professional phase of the program. I finally graduate in May. So I came in a little different, so I'm considered a post-bac student. So I went the more traditional route, and I'll kind of talk you through how that's a lot more stressful than doing direct entry. So I did my 4-year bachelor's at Texas A&M University. In my junior year at college is when I decided I want to go to physical therapy school. So at that point, you need to start doing observation hours. So I'm out in the clinic trying to balance getting observation hours while balancing my college course load. My senior year of college then is when I started applying through, we don't use the Common App for PT school, you use the PTCast website. And as we were mentioning, it is very costly. So when I applied, it was probably around $1,000 after applying to the 10 schools I did, sending out all my transcripts and whatnot. I didn't get into physical therapy school, so that's just one of those things, you're prolonging the time it took for me to get to where I am now. So in the interim of the 2 years I had between ending my bachelor's degree and starting here, I actually went and got my master's. So 2 more years of school, more money. I applied again, same application process, same costs, and ended up here at University of the Sciences. And I started in 2018. So it is a much longer process. So versus coming in direct entry, 0 to 6 years, by the time I'm done, I'm at, oh my gosh, 9 years of school at this point after high school. I can't say I haven't loved it. I'm just a school person, but if physical therapy, occupational therapy, pharmacy are what you know you want to do, this is a great option and much less stressful. It is very hard when you're in college trying to balance up applications, figuring out where your life is about to go and still sticking with your coursework. So I would definitely recommend the direct entry option if that's what you're interested in. In terms of the physical therapy program, I mean, I've absolutely loved my time here. And even with the last year and a half of my program, it's been weird. We've been in COVID times, right? But it has been fantastic. And I encourage you, when you're looking at programs, what I think really sticks out about USciences, which isn't something I necessarily thought of when I was applying, is, I came in and was like, I'm going to be a sports PT. I love sports. I played lacrosse my whole life. And I've completely switched gears and I'm actually pursuing working in critical care units and cardiovascular PT. So something that's nice though about the physical therapy department here is all of the different specialties within physical therapy, there is a faculty member who represents that field. And that is not something that happens at every university. So it's nice that that's an option and it exposes you to so much more. I'm currently on my last clinical rotation, but my first 2, I did my first one in Dallas. And my second one I did in Brooklyn this summer, and now I'm in Newtown Square, so I'm about 30 minutes from here. So if you want to travel for your clinical experiences, that is an option as well. We have people in California, Florida, Arizona, but those are just some of the things I think that is great about USciences.
Thanks, Casey. That was great. Yeah, you both did a great job. And so this is great because for those of you who are participants in the audience, this is great because Casey and Keisha both have very different entry points into the program. So very, very different pathways, but ultimately they are both pursuing the doctorate for their clinical doctorate at USciences in two different programs. But yeah, so this is great because we have two different kind of perspectives here. Casey coming from the perspective of applying as an external applicant. So she had to go through that grad school application process twice. And then, and then Keisha also has a different perspective as coming in as a first year student, as a direct entry student. So yeah, definitely there's, everyone has a little bit of a different path, but if you know that you want to pursue one of those programs and you're considering University of the Sciences, direct entry is definitely the way to go. And Keisha, I think you made a good point there too, is that if students are, if you're not sure yet, if you're thinking, I think I want to do direct entry and I like pharmacy or I like physical therapy, but I'm not sure yet, that's okay. What I always tell students is that if you're considering one of those programs and you're pretty sure that's what you want to do, applying directly to that program is the way to go. You can always transfer out of the program and you can pursue one of the other majors at USciences, one of the other professional programs or bachelor's degree programs. But even if you start in one of the bachelor's degree programs, let's say you start as a biology student or a pharmaceutical sciences student and you decide you want to pursue one of the professional programs, that's definitely a possibility. And some of the benefits are that you still don't have to take those graduate examinations to get into our professional programs if you start as a USciences student. So definitely some added benefits of starting at USciences versus another institution. So at this point, I think what I would like to do is I'd love to open it up to questions. Our students are really the star of the show here, so I would love to be able to, get them some questions from our audience. So, please don't be shy. That is what we're here for. Feel free to use the Q&A section as well as the chat, and we will answer your questions for you. And I think, as you're typing your questions into the Q&A chat, one of the other things that I always like to talk to students about too is, I know this is a little bit hard to think about, but when you're considering pursuing a professional degree program in 6 years versus 7 or 8 years, there's also the added kind of thing to think about that's also, if you're doing a 6-year program versus 7 or 8 years, that's 2 additional years of you working and making a full-time salary, versus if you're in school for 8 years, that's 2 lost years of income. So that's also something too, that kind of that opportunity cost for those of you who are kind of into like personal finance. But yeah, so I mean, that's kind of hard to think about that. It's a little bit abstract, but if you're doing a 6-year program, you're starting your professional career a couple of years earlier than you would be if you're pursuing a 7 or 8 year pathway through another institution. So just another kind of food for thought there. But yeah, so I would love to open it up again to our participants to ask questions that you have, whether it's about the admission process or about the student experience. Please let us know. And in the meantime, so Casey, you did a great job talking about your experiential opportunities. And Keisha, do you want to tell us a little bit about your opportunities that you've done so far?
Yeah, so for the OT department, we have 2 types, what we call as fieldwork. So we have fieldwork level 1 and fieldwork level 2 once you go into your professional years. So for us, it was still a 2+4 program, but now we're transitioning to a 3+3. So once you are here, your fieldwork starts in your 3rd year if you come in as a direct entry, a 4th year as you come into your direct entry program. So basically, in your first semester, clients actually come to you, and that's where you practice kind of your clinical skills, your personal skills, and making sure that you know how to interact with the patient correctly in a more simulated and safe environment within the classroom. And then slowly but surely, you start going into like the community more. What I like about our program is that we do a mix of medical and community-based fieldwork. So we go to Penn Shepherd Rehab Hospital. We also go into the Cancer Support Center down at, I think it was like 15 or 20 minutes away. So it's very like a really good range of different settings that you can kind of try out and see what you want to do. And then after your last year, you do go into field work where basically that's where you get partnered up with an actual OT and you shadow and you actually interact with clients in real time. So that's when they kind of like put you into your own rotations, and you have 2 of those for 3 months. So for me, I've already been placed. So my first one is in a rehab hospital in Virginia, and my other one is in a peds outpatient in Arkansas. So basically, if you want to, like Casey said, travel, there's definitely a lot of options, or if you want your options to be open. And we do have other placements that are local, but because of COVID, it came like a lot of things, because we are in the Northeast, kind of like closed. But as like time goes on, especially if you are coming in as an undergrad student, there's going to be a lot more options available as well. And like the PT department, our faculty is also very much clinical based as well. We have different faculty members that come from different settings, and some of our lab instructors really come from their job to school and they kind of tell us their experience. So it's nice to have different teachers or professors that represent different settings.
Thanks, Keisha. And so I guess another question, and I see that we have a question in the chat, so we can talk about that. And then I have another question for both of you as well. So we have a student who asked, is a dorm living recommended? So like living on campus, living in the residence hall. So Keisha, do you want to maybe talk about that, since you had the undergrad experience?
Yeah, for sure. So I really do recommend it, because I do believe that it's part of the first year experience, like making your new friends, kind of like joining your own little friend group, or like doing studying, especially since in your first 2 or 3 years here, like all of your classmates are in different programs. So you kind of like meet a lot of different people and kind of start that interprofessional like learning. But I was also an RA here, and I've gone through the first U1 dorm that we had, now to the very nice living and learning commons. And if you do put in your deposit, I believe by May 1st, it is almost guaranteed that you are in the LLC or the living and learning commons. And I 100% recommend that place. It is basically a hotel room. You have your own bathroom, your own sink. Like, you and your roommate are the only ones that are literally in that space. So it's basically like a mini apartment. I really like that place, especially as an RA. You have your own room, but it's so much like, it's just, I don't know. I just really like living on campus. I'm now off campus, and I do miss the convenience of living on campus, especially it's within walking distance, and you don't have to worry about other things like utilities or anything like that because everything is paid for. So if you have, but yeah, I really like living on campus.
That's great, Keisha. Yeah, and I definitely second the thoughts about the living and learning commons. I'm pretty jealous of that residence hall myself. But yeah, so, and yeah, just to kind of reiterate that, so that is a first come, first serve residence hall. So if the earlier you submit your deposit, the sooner you would be able to reserve your spot in the living and learning commons. And I guess, so Casey and Keisha, I have a question for both of you. So for students who maybe, like, let's say they're not sure if they, like, maybe what health profession they want to pursue, they're thinking maybe occupational therapy, maybe physical therapy, maybe pharmacy, like what kinds of recommendations do you have for them, maybe as high school students? Like what did you do to kind of learn that you wanted to go into, both PT and OT? What kinds of recommendations do you have for our students here?
So I think something that's really beneficial and I learned is you don't know what you're getting into unless you see it. So, and I know it is hard in these pandemic times, but even just looking up the different areas of where physical therapists can work. So from my perspective, PT, or asking to shadow a PT and just seeing the day to day, or even talking to a PT and seeing why they went into physical therapy, what setting they might be in. I know when a lot of people hear physical therapy, they think sports or, I tore my ACL. That's how I got into PT and went there. But I mean, physical therapists work in schools, hospitals, rehab hospitals. I mean, anywhere that an injury can happen, a PT is there. So that's a really good way to expose yourself, because I went into my bachelor's degree thinking I wanted to be a physician. and I exposed myself to the field and skirted away because I did not like it and ended up in physical therapy, which I absolutely love. So I think it is really important that you get out there in the field and just see what it's about and ask questions.
Yeah, I definitely second that. Coming in as a senior, my sister is actually the one that introduced me to OT. I never honestly have heard of it before. And I did my own research and I started shadowing in a pediatric outpatient clinic. And I literally loved it. I knew from that moment that the longer I shadowed, that I knew that that was the career that I want to like spend a lot of my money on. So I kind of just applied, and that's how I kind of narrowed down my schools. I actually only applied to 4 schools because those were the only 4 schools that allowed direct entry. And I believe there's more now, but I think the time and the transparency of the fixed tuition is the one that really geared me towards USciences, because for others, they just said like, this is your like tuition for the first 4 years, and then the next 2 will be different, but they wouldn't like explicitly say it. And financial aid was, at least for me, was better here at USciences. So that's another factor why I chose USciences. And I like the fact that with other students who have told me about their experience in the OT department, they really liked it, and like they loved the placements that they got, which kind of just solidified the way that their profession is going. So they just loved it so much that they recommend other people to it. So that's how I kind of like fell in love with occupational therapy. But definitely do your research, and if you aren't sure, try shadowing other people, maybe even ask like students what their experience is. Like you don't have to like commit like your whole 20 hours if you don't have that time. Even kind of like even looking at like YouTube videos of people who just share the experience of how it is to be an OT or a PT or a pharmacist. So just kind of expose yourself to the potential of what the career looks like.
That's wonderful. Thanks, Casey. Thanks, Keisha. Great recommendations there. Awesome. Okay. So yeah. So again, if you have questions, we would love to answer those for you. You can type them into the chat or into the Q&A, and we will be able to address those. But yeah, again, that was wonderful. Yeah. And I think that's so helpful too. I mean, I think especially during these times, it may not be as easily accessible to be able to do some shadowing or observing, but even just doing a little bit of research online and looking at videos about what does an occupational therapist do? What does a physical therapist do? What are the different options in pharmacy? What are my, what can I potentially do? And one of the great things too is that even if you're not able to physically be at a location, I know that a lot of students who've had experiences where they are able to virtually meet and virtually volunteer or shadow with a healthcare professional during this time. So definitely seek out those kinds of opportunities too. If you're not sure, maybe you're kind of deciding between a couple of different options, that's also a great option too. So yeah, definitely be proactive and look out for those opportunities as well. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I think at this point, this is kind of all that we had to cover today, and we hope that you kind of, were able to glean the definite benefits of joining a program like USciences in one of our direct entry programs. And we're going to just leave it open for the chat and the Q&A feature, but I do want to just go to my last slide here and just remind you that if you have any questions, please make sure that you're connecting with your admission counselor. You can call or text us on the number that you see on the screen. And if you're not sure who your admission counselor is, you can see that on the bottom of the slide. We have a link to the counselor page, so you can actually see who your admission counselor will be if you choose to apply. But please make sure you reach out to us. That is what we're here for. We're here to help you with your application process, but also to have these conversations with you. If you're not sure if you want to pursue a bachelor's degree program or a professional program, this is what we're here for. We're also able to help you get in contact with someone who can speak to you further about some of our programs as well. So if you wanted to talk to one of our faculty members, or if you wanted to get in contact with one of our ambassadors and talk about the professional program, we can also help you get in contact with someone to talk to you a little bit further as well. So yeah, so like I said, I'm going to leave it open. We'll leave it open for a couple more minutes to take questions in the chat or the Q&A. If you have any additional questions for Casey or Keisha, please let them know. They are happy to answer your questions. They're very friendly as well, so don't be shy to ask questions. But thank you all so much for joining us this evening. Like I said, we're going to keep it up for just a couple of minutes so you can get your last minute questions in. But otherwise, thank you all so much for joining us tonight. And again, if you guys have any questions, definitely let us know. I can definitely handle the admission and financial aid type questions, and Casey and Keisha can handle the student experience questions. Right, so I think we're gonna go ahead and close our webinar down. If you did not get a chance to ask your question, or if you have any additional personal questions related to your application status or anything like that related to your specific financial aid questions, I'm gonna go ahead and put the admission office email address in the chat feature, so you can reach out to us on an individual basis as well to get those questions answered. All right. Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and close the room. Thank you all so much for joining today. Casey, Keisha, thank you so much for your input and your expertise. That was wonderful to have you here. But yeah, guys, if you didn't get your questions answered, just definitely let us know. Reach out to your admission counselor, and we will be here to help you throughout your application process. Best of luck with everything. All right, go ahead and close down our webinar.